Well, good morning, Downsview. Saturday morning. Pam and I have the chance to have a night or two at the very gracious kindness of the Muskoka Bible Center. John Friesen and his team allow for us to be out here for a night or two to take advantage of a little bit of respite time. Our Sunday morning services, as you know, we're going to move back online as of tomorrow. And so if you would go to a couple of places, and you'll be able to find the services easily enough. If you just go to downsviewbaptistchurch.com, you will find a link at the top that says Sunday morning live stream. That will take you directly to my personal Facebook page, where you will find instructions to click on a link to see our service video for this particular Sunday. As it turns out, we'll be using a video because the plan, as many of you will remember, was for me to be on, and I have been on, a form of study leave this past week. Didn't quite get to meet with as many brothers in the Lord as I was looking to do, and I was to be preaching at one of our like-minded churches at Arundel Bible Chapel in Mississauga. But because Mississauga and Toronto are both severely restricted, I made a video so that they can play it at Arundel, and Rick Buck made a video to be shown and worshipped along with at Downsview. Now, Rick Buck is the relatively new regional director for our Feb Central Fellowship of Churches. I say this often, but not everybody picks it up to the same degree each time, so forgive me to remind you that we belong to the Fellowship of Evangelical Baptists in Canada. 500 plus churches across our country, and our region, our section of that, is called Feb Central, the central region of Canada. And we have 280 plus churches that are in our region, as well as the English-speaking churches in Quebec. And Rick, having been a senior pastor at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Barrie for some 23 plus years, has recently come on to take over the retirement, at least, of Bob Fleming, our very faithful regional director for a decade and more. And we're grateful that Bob Fleming is still sticking with us as the director of church health, but Rick is taking over as the regional director, and there's been some overlap of the time, but he's in place now. So for the last few months, he's been the one helping to set the direction for our fellowship and to carry out the vision and ministry of the gospel. And so Rick was kind enough not only to offer to spend some time with me, which we actually did this past Monday, but when we were setting it up, he said, you know, I would really be happy to come and preach at Downsview sometime. And I said, well, as it happens, I'm going to be off on the 29th of November. And he was not only able, but willing to come and to minister to our church. In fact, he was even willing to still come to Downsview if we were meeting, if we were going to do some kind of hybrid of 10 people meeting. And so I just really appreciate his heart in that. We said that wasn't necessary at this point, as our church is going to take a bit of a cleansing breath for the next few weeks and find ourselves online again. And so, as Rick was kind enough to offer to preach, he has pulled together a fine message of the Lord and his dealings with the Apostle Peter in particular in near the end of the Gospel of John. And so when you come to our Facebook page tomorrow morning, there'll be a link there that will take you directly to our YouTube channel, where you've been finding all of the videos since March. Okay, so nothing's changed there. That's one of the blessings at this time, that as much as I am really struggling with some level of discouragement from not meeting together in person, it's been relatively easy for us to pivot and to pivot back to online services, because we have everything in place. We've got this channel set up. You as a church family are somewhat used to it. You know how to go there. And so three things. go to downsviewbaptistchurch.com or go directly to the YouTube channel and just click or type in Downsview Baptist Church in Toronto. Or thirdly, just go to my Facebook page tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock and you'll see a link, a live link there that will take you directly over to our YouTube channel. So with that in mind, the other aspect of that, of course, is that the sister church, or at least one of our like-minded churches, Erindale Bible Chapel, pastored by my friend Ross Kearney. Ross had asked me a while back, and the leaders had agreed that I could end my study leave with sort of serving one of our fellow churches. And so I was glad to be able to do that. And so I've had to pull together a video for that and enjoyed that. And was glad to do that. A few technical bumps in the road as we went along, but it's there. And so we'll be in some ways being able to even serve one of our other fellow churches this Sunday morning because of this lockdown in a slightly different way than we had expected. And I mention that because I want us to continue to look for and see and celebrate, as you heard me said, evidences of grace, as C.J. Mahaney puts it, evidences of grace even in the midst of less than ideal circumstances or less than perfect circumstances in times that we are now with some pretty severe restrictions that we have, of course. Reality is that we're going to be grieving some of these things. We're going to be feeling the loss of some of these things. We are going to feel like the gatherings that we're usually able to have and that we're really frankly starting to pick up some steam, weren't they? They've come to a pretty significant halt. You can see behind me, this is one of the campfire areas that people would gather around here at Muskoka Bible Center. And when I see pictures, things like that, my first thought is, wow, those chairs are way too close. You can't socially distance. My second thought is, wow, when's the next time you're going to be able to actually gather in circumstances that look like that? And then I think, look, it makes a difference what you and I recall to mind and believe and choose to focus on in terms of the Lord's kindness in the past and therefore his promises for the future. And I want us as a church family to continue to be committed to God's design for us, to be together, to be an assembled body, not just a generic body and not just a generic unassembled body, but that is his role, or that is the role he's given us. That is the design that he's created us with. And so we should long for that. And if you recall, we went through a lot of emotions last March, didn't we? In terms of, missing things together. Really sad to not see each other. A fair bit of fear about this new virus. And yet here we were at a stage that we thought this was starting to get behind us, and it's really flared up again. And I think the media is making a bit much of aspects of it, and the number of people contracting this disease is not nearly as important a stat as how many are in hospital because of it, and more importantly, how many are actually dying more positively. Even though a number of people are contracting it, the number of deaths is a relatively small number, and the people who recover is quite a high number, actually. Having said all of that, this time there seems to be a bit of a cry of injustice. This is not so much fear. It's that people are afraid that the government really is starting to overreach. And I think there's something to consider there. I think there's something to consider really seriously that might in fact be what the government is doing. But remember, friends, don't be surprised when a sinful world acts sinfully. Don't be surprised when Christians are asked to endure the effects of sinful decisions, or at least unwise decisions, when Christian folks, again, we're not expecting that we have a government that is a Christian government. We have lots to be grateful for, frankly, for the efforts of Premier Ford and Prime Minister Trudeau, even our own Mayor John Tory, a number of our MPs, as well as the medical advisors and medical professionals who have been advising these situations. And you know, they really are in tricky situations. And when there becomes this cry of injustice or a cry for justice, the little bit of fear that I have is that sometimes we miss that, look, it's not nearly as simple and easy as we might want it to be, just because we want it to be different. Just because we wish something was better than it is doesn't mean that it's easy for anyone to just turn a switch, so to speak, and make it that way. I think there's something about, you know, remembering the call that Christians have that has a lot more to do with allowing the challenges of this life to build up something in us for good that shapes and molds us. I hear John Piper reminding us that the deepest or most significant times of growth in his life were not the times of ease, the times that everything was going the way we would like it to go, but many times when it really was difficult. Again, here I am under this little pavilion here, and this gorgeous fireplace in behind us, an area with all these different picnic tables and gathering, and boy, I long for this. And it's good that we long for it, but it's also good that we long with a sense that waiting is not all wrong, that patience is not second place, that perseverance is not something that we shouldn't have to deal with, but that we as God's people know, in fact, that God promises that He is going to work in our lives beyond and within ways that we haven't asked Him to do, but He's not given us second best. That there's a real sense that even if you suffer for a little while, as 1 Peter 5 says, that there is going to be a time that difficulty actually causes us to think, well, what is it that we're looking forward to for? What is it that we're missing? What is it that we're hoping for and eager to receive again? And that should, by God's kindness, point us back to the gospel again. So here we are, friends, our lockdown log number 6. And tomorrow morning, just check this same YouTube channel that you're watching this now, and the video should come up live for you, and we'll be able to worship partly from our church and partly from Rick Buck's own office, as he very kindly serves us that way. All right, friends, enjoy your day in the Lord today. Cheers.